and also stones of a different, magical kind. A land where the boundaries between the seen and unseen, between myth and everyday reality, have always been thin. A land of stone circles and rock carvings, of gently meandering streams and quiet towns and misty bogs, the ancient land of Faerie. In such a land lives an artist who seeks communion with the ancient elemental forces which reside here. An artist who is embarking upon a spiritual quest, a quest to become a witch.
I've always been an artist in my heart and my soul, from childhood, from very early childhood. And the reason I started painting in the first place was my love of the earth. The inspiration for my paintings comes from historical and mythological stories. Through each of the different paintings, I'm using different energy and a different feeling to bring through the emotions of a particular deity.
Karina considers her paintings to represent portals or windows leading to an alternate universe, a universe of gods, of goddesses, and elemental spirits. Witchcraft is just one way humans have sought to define their relationship to divinity and to the powers which lay behind the visible and tangible universe.
Witchcraft is a religion. We worship the ultimate creator. If there is an ultimate creator, there can only be one. But we like to polarize it into its male and female aspects as the god and the goddess, like two terminals of a battery. If a battery doesn't have two equal and complementary terminals, then no current flows.
Ireland is also home to some of the world's most famous witches, Janet and Stuart Farrar, who between them have written some of the most influential books on witchcraft of recent years. In search of instruction, and ultimately initiation, Karina seeks them out.
What kind of people become witches? Again, the answer is really basically anybody. Anybody who is spiritually sensitive and wants to find a religion that deals with grassroots. A religion that frees them from fear and superstition, and a religion that brings them closer to the earth, closer to nature. In our coven, we've had everything from an Indian princess to a building site labourer, a brothel bouncer, prostitute, politician, rock star, yacht builder, chef, housewife, grandmother, ages. We've had everyone from somebody just turned 18, which, by the way, is the limitation. You have to be over the age of 18, really basically because you need to have a degree of maturity. Everybody from over the age of 18 up to 90. The The oldest witch we've ever had was 95. The youngest was just over the age of 18. To be honest, I prefer people in their late 20s, to start in their late 20s. You do need maturity and responsibility.
I first came across witchcraft when I was sent to interview the Sanders by a journal I was working for. And the more I learned, I attended their meetings and so on, and listened to Alex's lectures. And the more I learned of it, the more I realised it was for me. Alex was very difficult in that he didn't permit questions after his talks. So, which is a pity, because I think a lot of questions would have been useful. But anyhow, it set me on that path. I remember somebody asking Maxine once, was he a charlatan or a magician? And she answered both, which I think probably sums him up. He could be a naughty old rogue sometimes in his... but he had genuine power.
That's the one question we always get asked. How can you memorise all those rituals that you have in your books? And I just look at them and say, what do you mean memorise? I don't actually use that stuff. I write that for other people. I don't use that. And they look at me as if I'm completely nuts.
Yeah. Most of our rituals we take straight from the heart.
Which is what it should be.
If you have all the knowledge you need about what the ritual is about, you don't need to learn the words, because it just flows naturally, it becomes poetic. And that is part of the art of ritual. It's like all books you'll come across on craft. They're guidelines, they're not to be taken in the whole entirety. You take the bits you need from them. A lot of people will read a book and think, oh, that's how it should be. But that's not quite true. I mean, these are people's ideas, and everybody's ideas are different.
And wonderful ideas as well. I say that, it's lovely to read, it's inspiring.
One of the things we do leading up to dedication, and dedication is a small ritual where you dedicate yourself to the path of being a witch. It's saying, I'm willing to learn. I'm changing the path of my life. And what we do is we work you through the elements, and leading up to dedication is the element of earth which governs foundation. And it's there that we put down the foundations for the building that you're going to build, for the roots of the tree. So it's really important you get that right at the beginning. And one of the things we do is we work through the elements in earth. So for reading, that's air. It's building your intellect. It's not everything we know of 3 other elements. I mean, there's fire, there's going to be magical exercises, there's going to be water, there's going to be feeling, which is important. You need to feel, and there's not enough of that. I know, that's your subject, isn't it? You're Pisces, and I know what you're like with water. So that's really important, actually feeling. And again, there's the earth itself, it's linking to the earth. So we'll get you around lots of ancient sites about, and you can actually feel the goddess beneath your feet.
Oh, right.
But I'm afraid it's hard work first.
Yeah, that's
so
okay.
I'm going to take you off.
Good. Challenge me.
Right? I'm going to challenge you, right? Because we're going off to the library and I'm going to get you a whole pile of stuff to read. Come on.
Represents life, it is intelligence, it is the healing aspect, it is creativity, it is symbolized by the magic wand or sometimes the witch's staff. Fire represents light, energy, potency, energizing, it's very much a God aspect. Inside the magic circle it is represented either by the sword or the athame. Water representing love, intuition, the cycle of life and death and rebirth. It is very much a goddess element, and inside the magic circle it is represented by the chalice. Earth is stability, law, solidity. Its traditional symbol is the five-pointed star, the pentacle. It's about time we had a look at the tools.
Yeah. I'm looking.
Let's start from the beginning. When Gardner started to put the craft together, he came up with a whole set of ritual regalia that you needed to be a witch. How many times have you walked down the street and you've seen somebody walking along with a five-pointed star round their neck set inside a circle, which automatically says, I'm a witch?
It does, yeah. Fairly often.
Fairly often.
Fairly often, yeah. Yeah.
There is your pentacle. Forget the jewellery people wear. Just think about it as the sphere that witches work in. We don't have churches, temples in the ordinary sense of the word. The whole world is our temple. And because the world is circular, a sphere, our magic circle, our temple that we carry with us is also a sphere. But because we are rooted in earth, the primary tool of witchcraft is the pentacle.
Right.
The symbols on it, signs of the zodiac around the edge of it, that's your own particular choice. You don't have to have those on it.
And the stones of
The stones going with each of the signs of the zodiac.
Right.
You have the degrees of witchcraft, set with the triangles and the two five-pointed stars, which represent your first, your second and your third degree. The goddess figure, the god figure, represented by a little horned bull there, and two crescent moons for the goddess. We've talked a lot about the Earth Mother, but the other concept is that the goddess is a triple form. Not only is she maid, mother and crone, but like the moon, she is the maiden moon, the waxing moon, the full moon, which is the right mother, and the waning moon, which is the old hag of wisdom, in Ireland, the Callia. The other two symbols here are interesting because one aspect of the craft which I've done away with in my own coven is the idea of ritual scourging. That symbol is not a dollar. It represents a scourge, a whip. My old one used to be made of horsehair and it wouldn't actually hurt you. This one here represents a kiss. They are severity and mercy. There are times when you have to be a little severe with your student.
Right.
But there are other times when you encourage them and you praise them. And I think that is far more effective than putting someone through an ordeal in the sense of scourging them. Studying the craft is going to be an ordeal enough because it is hard work. And part of that ordeal is how you learn, how you gain your own knowledge, because it can be painful sometimes. Your witch's circle, like your pentacle, is divided into the four elements of air, earth, fire and water, ruled by spirit. That's what the five-pointed star represents. Air, earth, fire, water, ruled by spirit. You can see this in practical terms. How many times have you heard somebody described as, oh, there's such a drip? Or isn't she airy-fairy? Or what a fiery temper? Or, oh, you are so down to earth and staid all the time. They are all negative aspects of these four elements of air, earth, fire and water.
Overbalanced kind of a thing. So.
Overbalanced.
Yeah.
If you actually think about that star, it's a little man. There's his head and his two arms and his legs. This is what a human being should be, a perfect balance of these four elements. Each element rules an emotion and each element has a tool. In yourself as a human being, you should have the drive and inspiration of air, the get up and go energy of fire. You should keep your feet firmly on the ground and be down to earth. And if you have no emotions, you have no water in you. Water rules the element of love and compassion. All the things that should make you a perfect human being, ruled by your own divine spirit. The other thing is people make pentacles of various substances. This one is copper. I have seen them silver, I have seen them gold, I've seen them carved in black obsidian, beautifully carved in wood. Wonderful.
And this is beautiful copper, but I mean, personally, I'm a humble artist and I wouldn't be able to afford this.
Mother Earth is right here under your fingertips. If you're working inside your house, for example, you're a city dweller, you have no countryside to work in, a simple bowl of earth will suffice for your pentacle.
As the pentagram represents the goddess, the wand represents the god. When Gardner came up with his system of magical tools for Wicca, he took them from a system of ceremonial magic which went back to the last century. And in that system, the wand represented fire, but in Wicca, it's become to represent air instead. If you wanted to personify the wand as an archetype, it's the Merlin figure. It's the magician, the greying beard, the wisdom and the intellect, because it's governed by the element of air, the element of wisdom and intellect itself. You can see this one's encrusted with gems, which of course all crystal magic is actually governed by the element of air, and the crystals themselves, for instance, might be crystals related to the element of water or element of earth, but they will be earth within air.
Yeah, right. And this one has a little face on it.
That's actually a scarab beetle.
Ah, right.
Now, you don't actually need a wand like this. My first one was just
That's
yes,
beautiful. It's beautiful.
it's beautiful, but my first one was just a hazel twig cut at Beltane.
Right.
Just as the sun came up, and there's sort of something much more natural and symbolic about that. Now, most covens, and I do emphasise covens have swords.
Right.
It's the element of fire. I mean, a wand goes up into the sky. I mean, it comes from a tree which goes up into the sky, up into the air. A sword is forged in fire, and just like the wand represents the god as an elderly god of wisdom, the sword represents fire. It's the young god full of enthusiasm, and fire represents your willpower, your energy. So the sword is a magical weapon of doing,
Action.
of action. Yes, exactly, right word, action.
Right.
Now, the sword came in again from ceremonial magic. It is not a weapon you need. It is not a magical tool you need. What you do need is an athame.
Right.
Now, an athame is, every witch has an athame. It's their primary magical tool. It represents their willpower, and it's an important link to the past, because the first tool man made was a piece of flint he had chipped away to use as an edge for scraping skins and for cutting sinew from bone. So it's about man's control of the elements. Right. So the athame represents your ability to control the elements. So this is a weapon of command. It's a magical tool of command.
And so, Gavin, what would you not use your athame for?
We would certainly not use it for drawing blood. We would certainly not use it for attacking and harming people. This idea of witches sacrificing people is ludicrous. It just doesn't happen.
Right.
This is a spiritual weapon.
Right.
It's as simple as that. It's a spiritual weapon, not a physical weapon.
Okay. And you'd saying something earlier about medicinal herbs or herbs in general as well.
You would never cut herbs with a metal bladed weapon, not steel or iron. You can cut it with copper or with brass or with bronze, but never with iron, because the iron actually leaches the power out of the herb.
The element of water, the chalice. Chalices come in every shape and sort and size you can possibly imagine. The cauldron is a glorified chalice. People are going to think that the craft is very hung up on sex, because what does it represent? The womb of Mother Earth. Most covens, when the chalice is on the altar, fill it with red wine to represent the sort of lifeblood of the earth. If you don't drink alcohol, then whatever you like. Fruit juice, cranberry goes down very nicely. And sometimes it's much better than having alcohol as such inside the circle. Right. Again, this chalice was given to us in America And it's a very nice chalice.
It's beautiful, yeah? Absolutely.
But on a lot of witches' altars, you're going to see fabulous silver chalices. Has anyone a slight problem with that?
It's blinking expensive.
Blinking expensive. A simple wooden one suffices.
Right.
Amongst some of the older covens, they point out quite correctly, a wooden chalice is more traditional. And do you know why? Because back in the Middle Ages, if you were living in the countryside and you had a silver chalice, and your house was raided, you would be arrested. Not for witchcraft, but for theft. Only the church could afford a silver chalice.
Right.
So wood is much more traditional than any elaborate silver chalice you are ever going to find.
Right.
But please, not plastic. I have actually seen witches who use plastic chalices.
You want some sort of natural...
Something natural.
...element.
Wicca, as it is known today, is basically a modelled religion. Witchcraft, Wicca, some people prefer to call it witchcraft because they think the word Wicca is too, well, twee. They want to reclaim the concept of being a witch. And they try very much to pretend that it's an ancient religion that goes back thousands of years. Certainly its philosophy is ancient, but in its present form it's very much a modern concept. Let's start from the beginning. Let's take witchcraft today as we know it. Back in 1950 in Britain, the witchcraft law was repealed. Basically, the police asked for it to be repealed and replaced it with the Fraudulent Mediums Act because it was completely unworkable. To try to prosecute somebody as a witch was nonsensical, it was just farcical. And about this time, a man called Gerald Gardner, who claimed to have a doctorate, which was, to be honest, a little phony, discovered when he was round the New Forest area of Britain, down in Hampshire, a group of people who ran a theatre, a Rosicrucian theatre. And he became very convinced that these were witches practicing an ancient religion. They certainly had some kind of religious ritual, which I suppose one might call witchcraft. And they had a little clique together, which Gardner knew of as the Coven. And this was known as the famous New Forest Coven. There's no doubt that the rituals that they practiced were very Spartan. These people were very wealthy people. They weren't your peasant farmers. They were well off, well educated, men and women. And to be honest, I think well, we have to think that this is just after the war, after World War II. And I think that it was a throwback, that these people had been through a terrible situation. Thousands of people had died across the world. And these people were young, wealthy, as I've already stated. And I think they invented for themselves a philosophy and a religion that today would have been described as a hippie movement. Gardner met them. He was introduced to a woman called Dorothy Clutterbuck, who seemed to be the leading figure in this, the, quote, high priestess figure. And he became convinced that this was a coven. Whether it was or not, we will never know. Not really, not in all honesty. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that Gardner became so enthusiastic about their religious practices, he adopted them, and later on over the years, along with people like Doreen Valiente, he amplified them and made a workable concept. And from that was created Wicca, witchcraft as we know it today. I think, to be honest, the actual practice of witchcraft then and now would bear no relationship whatsoever to any kind of witchcraft over the last 400 to 500 years. And as it has grown and developed, it has changed, it has evolved. And during that evolution, it has actually begun to trace its roots backwards in a practical sense. For example, if witchcraft existed and was practiced by country people 300 or 400 years ago, it would have been not so much a coven set up as we have it today, but it will be on a one-to-one basis, teacher and pupil. Modern witchcraft tends to say that it should be taught man to woman and woman to man. I believe this is rubbish. I think that witchcraft would have been taught woman to woman, generation after generation, and the same man to man. It would have been a philosophy that was a practical one. It would have taught the pupil how to work in tune with the countryside, to become a better farmer, for example. It would teach a young man how to work with the land, how to understand seasonal festivals, how to plant, how to reap. It would have taught young women how to deal in early medicine, for example, herbalism. It would have taught them a great respect for Mother Earth. And yes, it would have been very secretive. It would have been a family affair. The chalice itself very much represents the younger aspect of the goddess, the sort of spring, fertile woman who becomes the mother, whereas the pentacle represents the older aspect of the goddess, you know, the dark earth mother herself, the old hag of wisdom. That's why a cave is a very good place, and you wouldn't think of it because you would think that a cave represented earth. Think how damp it is inside a cave. It is a perfect entrance to the womb of Mother Earth. So you can use a cave as your chalice.
Right.
It's a very feminine-orientated religion, but there's a lot of misconception that it's totally goddess-orientated. As Doreen Valiente once said to me, if old Horny wasn't in the craft, meaning the horned god, I would not want to know.
No, yeah, nor would I.
You cannot have it without the balance of the masculine and the feminine. They go hand in hand. There's masculine and feminine in every human being. You have your buried masculine other half.
The animus.
That's right. I have my buried masculine other half. Gavin has his buried feminine other half. The god and the goddess, the lord and the lady, are complementary. One does not stand above the other. The reason the goddess takes precedent and why a coven setup is ruled by a woman is because if you look back over the last 2,000 years, many of the world religions are very patriarchal, male-dominated. Stuart says the god is not dead, he is a grass widower.
So
you have to bring his feminine consort back again. And because we do so much work in the field of conservation, we are working with Mother Earth. She needs, at the moment, to take precedence.
Right.
There's a piece of literature that Doreen Valiente wrote some years ago, and one statement in that, the goddess herself, in her words to her children, she speaks of being the mother of all living. And this is why inside the craft you will never see animal sacrifice, for example. The mother of all living, that includes animals. So many people believe that witches, because of our elaborate regalia, especially our athenas and our knives, they cannot believe that we don't use them to kill animals or to injure other human beings.
Well, yeah, that's
You have to have a respect for life to be a witch.
In the earliest times, the horns or antlers have been a symbol of divinity. For instance, in Lascar in France, in the cave of Trèffer, there's a cave painting of a shaman performing a ritual for a successful hunt. And he's wearing animal hides and antlers, identifying with the horn god. The horn god is the personification of the masculine aspect of nature. He is associated as a hunter deity, but he's also the protector of animals, the protector of wildlife, the protector of the forests, of trees, of everything in nature. And he is the creative and generative force. So in that sense, he is incredibly masculine. He's usually portrayed with the antlers, very well muscled, very obviously masculine figure. But also, because he is almost purely right brain, he's a creature of instinct and of intuition. So he's also, in a strange way, one of the most feminine of the gods. So in the horn god, you have this incredible mixture of the masculine and feminine in almost perfect harmony, that wild, free abandonment, which is also nurturing and planting and growing and guiding. So he's an incredibly complex and yet very, very simple figure at the same time.
Karina, accompanied by Janet Farrar, begins the traditional witch's study of plant lore.
Goosegrass, affectionately known as sticky willy. It's under the hairs, a little leaf brax. It's one of those plants, if you throw it on clothing, it will stick because of the little hairs under the leaves. It's very sticky to touch. If you strip the leaves down, strip them off, and you can make a poultice to put on hemorrhaging wounds. If you're out in the countryside, you've cut yourself, you haven't got anything to put round it, no cloth or anything, slap some of that over it. It coagulates the blood. Otherwise, it's an absolute nuisance, but it's such a useful plant. We are surrounded by nature's treasures. Unfortunately, in this day and age, we've got too used to using antibiotics. And you know the harm that we now know they are doing to us. They're overused. But always be practical. Witches believe that medical science and natural science go hand in hand.
Right.
If you get so ill that you need to take medication from a doctor, do it. But for simple things where you can help yourself, turn to Mother Nature and the countryside. Boost your system with lots of garlic. Take your spring tonic.
Right.
Work with the earth. But if you need a doctor, use a doctor. As you know, aspirin comes from the willow tree, from the bark of the willow tree. Aspirin is just as much a rite of magic as is any plant growing wild. Yes, it's been made into a pill form, but it works. We knew about aspirin long before the medics did. An incense cabinet, an herbal cabinet, constantly needs reorganising and cleaning, and that's going to be your job, my dear.
Right.
But we expect you, if you start to study the ancient religion, to understand the uses of oils for various purposes, incenses, for example, ylang ylang.
Right.
Have a smell. Very heady. Whew. Ylang ylang, Karina, used in a massage oil is excellent for releasing your own frustrated sexual energy. If you are working with a person who has sexual problems, an ylang ylang oil rubbed and given as a proper massage will help to free sexual frustration inside them. It's very relaxing and very healing on a sexual level, as is tea tree. Tea tree is the cure-all. Do you know they are now using this in Australia as an antiseptic in hospitals before operations? It kills off bacteria so wonderfully. If you have an open wound, by the way, I'm going to say, if you cut yourself on something like barbed wire, do go and get an anti-tetanus shot. But if you have an open wound, a simple cut, spots on your face, rub tea tree on it.
Right.
It works very, very well. It's one of the most wonderful healers that Mother Earth has ever produced, along with the stinging nettle. Smell the olivinum. During the time of ancient Egypt, Queen Hatshepsut sent her people down into the land of Punt to look for the incense tree. The land of Punt is Nubia, and it was there they found the trees that frankincense, olivinum, grew from. Now it is cultivated throughout the Middle East. It's a wonderful, warm, healing smell.
Healing has always been an essential part of witchcraft. In fact, you could go as far to say that witchcraft wouldn't exist without the need to heal. As far back as Neolithic man, there is evidence of him using herbs, balms and oils for the purpose of healing. You can see this in Egyptian culture, Mesopotamian, right the way forward into the Greeks and the Romans. When you talk about healing in respect of witchcraft, most people think immediately of herbalism, but there are several other forms of healing used. Most witches nowadays use spiritual healing. They use the aura and energy centers in the body, referred to as chakras, for healing. This is sometimes referred to in common culture as faith healing or the laying on of hands, but it's much more complicated than that. Also, you find witches have embraced the current trend towards complementary medicine. You'll find witches using many different forms of alternative therapies, ranging from reflexology through to shiatsu and acupuncture. What I'm going to do is what some people refer to as spiritual healing. Others refer to it auric or chakric healing. You have a series of auras which go around your body. The closest one in is the etheric. It's best described as what your physical body hangs on. The next one out is the mental emotional. Now, this portrays your emotions to other people. It's like, for instance, when you walk into the room, you know somebody is upset. They may not have the visual expressions, but you just know what you're actually doing is you're subliminally seeing that aura. And that is telling you something about that person, so it's very much related to communication. The next one is the spiritual aura. Now, there's a saying that the Buddha, Gautama, his spiritual aura went out for 5 miles.
Right.
It expands with growth. With your growth spiritually, your actual spiritual aura will actually grow. Now, what I'm going to work with initially is with your aura, so just relax. And I enter your aura very slowly. The first thing I do is go in and work with your etheric, just bringing down.
The lessons in healing techniques take many months and cover many different systems. Karina is expected to attain a thorough understanding of the theory and practice of alternative medicine. Gavin, who is a specialist in healing and who has a professional background in orthodox medicine, is her instructor throughout this period.
Witches use whatever works. I mean, I've just done direct spiritual and psychic healing on you, but we may adopt things from the New Age. We might actually use crystals, probably not to the same extent as a crystal practitioner. Somebody who's trained in use of crystals might, but you would certainly see witches using obsidian to actually drain off negative energy, and using quartz.
At the top of the hill, other members of Janet's circle await to explain the significance of working magic at ancient sites.
When you cast your circle, you begin in the north and you return to the north. You start from Earth, go around through the other elements and return to Earth. In many ways, the element of Earth is the building block. It is the start and the finish. Life comes out of the element of Earth, comes out of the Earth. We live our life on it, and when we die, we return full circle into the Earth again.
Okay, so this place here, would you consider this place yourself a sacred place?
We would consider it a sacred place, but we prefer to use the phrase place of power.
Right.
If you say that one place is sacred, then by extension you're saying other places aren't. And all land, all earth is sacred. So to divide it up into places that require sanctification and places that don't, it divorces us even further from the land. 70% of the Irish landscape is artificial. Mounds have been raised, notches cut in mountaintops, artificial lakes built thousands and thousands of years ago. The whole land of Ireland was sculpted into one huge temple over thousands and thousands of years. The whole land. Nikki's going to do some dowsing with you. Teach you how to do some dowsing, how to find and read the earth energies. So I'm just going to nip off and get the rods, and Nikki will keep chatting to you here.
Yeah. Okay. Let me see. Earth healing. The thing I would say about earth healing too is healing at the beginning is to heal the rift between yourself and the earth. And in doing so, it's knowing where to start. And the first place to start is not by going up onto some place of power and standing there and doing a full-on ritual and doing a healing of the earth that way. Where to start is in your own environment, at home. It comes down to picking up papers off the street, making sure that your environment at home is friendly in every possible way.
So you'd be slowly kind of changing your awareness, your consciousness to meld.
And every now and again, if you do have a place of power near you, to go and check it out, take a visit and see that it's okay, see that it's clean. If you know, if there are things wrong with it, it's to start fixing from that end of
beginning
things.
to look after the earth as you see it first of all.
From that end.
Okay, so by doing this, by looking after the earth to a local extent, we're actually looking after ourselves and learning to begin to heal ourselves
as well. Yeah, most definitely. Yeah.
Okay, and as this awareness grows, then we're able to tap into energies.
It makes you more aware of your surroundings, more connected with the earth that you work with yourself. In cleansing the earth physically by picking up papers, you're cleansing yourself physically as well in order to combine the two and to be able to work with the energies of the earth around you in your surroundings. So
Right.
Okay, some people hold the rods far, far too loosely. So they do, and then there's no support. They swing around every way. You must take a pretty tight grip of them, but still allowing that to maneuver itself. So that. Okay, Fran, do you want to explain the lines to Karina that she's found, the reasons why they meet and interconnect the way they do here?
Yeah, surely. The lines are natural. They occur all over the world, in every place. The sites are built along the lines. The sites don't cause the lines. What the lines of earth energy are, in a way, they're the nervous system of the Earth Mother, of Gaia. More than the nervous system in the physical sense, because they relate directly to the acupuncture meridians.
Right. So is it ethereal, or does it actually go into the earth?
It's into the earth.
Right. And it comes out into the ethereal.
Yeah, it comes out into the ethereal.
These tombs are 5,000 years old and bear rock carvings which are as clear today as when they were first cut by our ancestors. These carvings symbolize swirling energies and the cycles of the sun and moon, the changing of the seasons.
The witch of the Middle Ages would have had a great interest in mental states, of changing his or her mental state. He would not have viewed it as anything other than a spiritual or magical experience. He would have been very shamanistic. And modern witchcraft, as is evolving, is becoming less ritualistic, which it was in Gardner's day, and more shamanistically orientated. And this is why I think it is attracting such a worldwide following. In the 60s, we went through the drug culture. The drug culture in the sense that people wanted to expand their consciousness, expand their minds. So they played with acid, they played with LSD, smoked a lot of marijuana, and consciously changed inside themselves. They shifted their conscious attitudes. And they developed It was, in a sense, it was an evolutionary jump for young people back in the 60s. Although a lot of rubbish is talked about the love generation, yes, we were the love generation then. Well, today, the modern love generation, the children of the 90s and going into the year 2000, they are experimenting with changing their consciousness. But a lot of them, those who are using the occult, witchcraft, magic in any form, are using a shamanistic approach. They are learning how to tap into their deep subconscious mind and use ritual with it and meditation to advance themselves spiritually and to become more aware and in tune with the universe that we live in.
Karina begins a series of deep meditations upon these symbols and the powers they represent. After earth, water, and more meditation and instruction.
Wherever you find a sacred well in Northern Europe, you'll always find a tree. The well represents the descent into the underworld, it's the gateway.
Right.
You find it in Norse myth, in Saxon myth and in Celtic, where you descend the waters, the unconscious mind, down into the underworld. You will always find a tree next to a well. Right the way through Ireland, in Britain. The tree is the reverse of the well. The tree goes up into the heavens, and its roots go down into the ground. And where the roots finish, the wells begin.
Right, yeah. Okay, and so these little gifts, these little offerings, where are they? Where do they
They're
come in?
libations. You find libations all over Ireland. People leave things tied onto trees. I mean, they're offerings. They're pleas to God in Catholic sense, but it's far older. It's pagan in origin. It's very pagan magic. I mean, there's a young child, there's a foot problem somewhere.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
they found these offerings when they have dug up some of the old Roman ruins. So it probably originally came out of Rome, but it's a very pagan practice.
Do you remember your legends of King Arthur?
Vaguely.
Do you remember his half-sister, his witch sister, Morgan Le Fay?
I do.
Morgan Le Fay looked into her magic mirror and gazed down upon Camelot. That is Morgan Le Fay's magic mirror.
Right.
The mirror is in Glastonbury, the Holy Well. Here at St Kieran's Well, this well fulfills the same purpose. Wells used to have priestesses who were their guardians. And part of the reason for that is they are an excellent method for teaching you to scry. And scrying is the art of being able to look deep into the waters, allow your mind to relax, allow your sight gently to flow with the water itself. In the end, you will start seeing images, not images as reflections, but they are images of spiritual experiences. Usually they occur actually inside your own head. It's almost like watching a television screen. And these have been used by priestesses since time immemorial.
So they would be acting as kind of an amplifier.
They're an amplifier.
For your own depths of imagination, somehow channeling and reaching into the land of truth. Well, if I were to look at it.
We're lucky, we live in the countryside and we have holy wells. An urban witch, many of them, they put black ink into a metal bowl and they use the black ink to get the same effect. Or they use a black mirror to scry into. Some use crystal, the traditional crystal ball. The only problem with crystal is it can give you a blinding headache. Water is much better.
the element of air, of thought, of inspiration, and another cycle of meditation.
Witches do not believe in heaven and hell because most witches, you find, believe in reincarnation, you know, that we come back to a new life on this earth, and therefore heaven and hell don't exist as such.
Fire is the element of energy, of action. Karina is encouraged not only to meditate upon this element, but to master it, to balance its destructive and creative potentials within herself. Always, the aim is self-transformation and the balancing of the elements under the guidance of the divine spirit. Initiation is a ritual of transformation which marks the passage from one stage of development to the next. Karina has experienced each of the elements during her training in the element of earth. This gives her stability on her personal path of communion with the goddess, and is symbolized in this ritual by the tree and by its roots which descend into the earth. Now she must experience all the elements in water, the element of love and trust. In air in water, she must trust her personal wisdom and intellect. She is asked to listen to the voices that guide her from within, but she must also learn to trust the voices of others. Fire is the element of willpower and faith, and the next ordeal reflects this. It is about having faith in those that guide you, and that they will not do anything to intentionally or unintentionally harm you. Karina must have the personal willpower to overcome her own fears. Finally, in water, her guide brings her to the abyss which she must decide to cross. Once crossed, she can never return. You cannot undo that which you have learnt about yourself or about the universe around you. This is the final act of trust and is symbolized by crossing the bridge. It is here, at the gateway to the underworld, symbolized by the well, that she meets her true self, her inner voice, which in the woman is symbolized as the crone, the goddess of wisdom.
I am your older self, Karina. I am age and I am wisdom. You have passed the test of the elements of life, and now you stand before me in pure spirit. I am as old as the mountains, and so are you. Life after life we come from Mother Earth to live and dwell with her holy children. Now you join the craft of the wise, the brotherhood and sisterhood of the servants of Mother Earth. Are you willing to serve humanity?
I am.
Are you willing to nurture all that lives and breathes?
I am.
Are you willing to hold in your arms the creatures of the earth?
I am.
Then let the tears flow that flow upon your face, the gift back to her who gave you life. And in her honor, drink of her bounty. Honor those whom you love, from the great to the lesser, from the mighty to the weak. Honor those who gave you life, your mother and father. Honor mankind, and honor yourself, sister and witch. Blessed be.
Blessed be.
As the Athame is to the male, so the cup is to the female. Conjoined in one, they become truth.
When Gerald Gardner first put together his Book of Shadows, the information in it was very limited. He later created a later form of the Book of Shadows with Doreen Valiente, who wrote some of the most beautiful pieces of literature in the history of the craft. One of these pieces is The Charge of the Goddess. It is the words of the Great Mother of Life to the children of the earth. Some covens work naked, which we call skyclad. Some work robed. We tend to do both. In Doreen's original charge, she talks about being naked in your rights. We still use this ourselves, but naked has two aspects. You can either be thinking of physical nudity or of the earth herself. She strips herself open and shows herself in her loveliness to you. So, in a sense, when you hear the words of Doreen Valiente's charge, remember that they have many, many meanings, but all of them refer essentially to the Great Mother herself, who in many cultures has had many names: Diana, Artemis, Astarte, Athene, Melusine, Aphrodite, Ceridwen. Here in Ireland it's Danu, Isis of Egypt, Breed of Ireland. Her names are myriad, and only some of these you will hear in the charge.
Listen to the words of the Great Mother. She who of old was also called among men Artemis, Astarte, Athene, Dione, Melusine, Aphrodite, Ceridwen, Dana, Arianrod, Isis, Breed, and by many other names.
Whenever ye have need of anything, once in the month, and better it be when the moon is full, then shall ye assemble in some secret place and adore the spirit of me, who am queen of all witches. There shall ye assemble, ye who are fain to learn all sorcery, yet have not won its deepest secrets. To these will I teach things that are yet unknown, and ye shall be free from slavery. And as a sign that ye be really free, ye shall be naked in your rights, and ye shall dance, sing, feast, make music and love, all in my praise. For mine is the ecstasy of the spirit, and mine also is joy upon earth. For my law is love unto all beings. Keep pure your highest ideal. Strive ever towards it. Let naught stop you or turn you aside. For mine is the secret door which opens upon the land of youth. Mine is the cup of the wine of life, the cauldron of Ceridwen, which is the holy grail of immortality. I am the gracious goddess, who gives the gift of joy unto the heart of man. Upon earth, I give the knowledge of the Spirit eternal, and beyond death I give peace and freedom and reunion with those who have gone before. Nor do I demand sacrifice, for behold, I am the mother of all living, and my love is poured out upon the earth.
Hear ye the words of the star goddess, she in the dust of whose feet are the hosts of heaven, and whose body encircles the universe.
I who am the beauty of the green earth and the white moon amongst the stars, and the mystery of the waters, and the desire of the heart of man, call unto thy soul, arise and come unto me, for I am the soul of nature who gives life to the universe. From me all things proceed, and unto me all things must return. And before my face, beloved of gods and of men, let thine innermost divine self be enfolded in the rapture of the infinite. Let my worship be within the heart that rejoiceth, for behold, all acts of love and pleasure are my rituals. And therefore, let there be beauty and strength, power and compassion, honor and humility, mirth and reverence within you. And thou, who thinkest to seek for me, know thy seeking and yearning shall avail thee not unless thou knowest the mystery, that if that which thou seekest thou findest not within thee, then thou wilt never find it without thee. For behold, I have been with thee from the beginning, and I am that which is attained at the end of desire.